you've done a talk show?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I had my own talk show for a while.
Really? Where?
It was a radio program, and it was a recorded broadcast. The problem was I would listen to my recordings, and I couldn't stand the way I sounded.
That is so common, though.
Yeah.
You know, there are artists who can't listen to their music or to their singing. I don't listen. I can edit my own stuff. Part of what people do with podcasting is to cut out short clips and then post it on social media. I can't go through it.
Right.
It's too much. It takes up too much space in my head.
Well, I couldn't stand my sound. I couldn't stand it. But, and no one told me. They said, you sound fine. Everyone thinks that. No. I really sound bad. I'm so convinced. I canceled my own. I had a sponsor. I canceled it. Says, please, no, I can't. I couldn't stand it. So ended up getting speech therapy and voice lessons.
Really?
My voice is so much better now. You can't imagine how bad my voice was before. I couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand how I talked.
Wow.
So I went for therapy and
so I'm not listening to my own stuff, so I don't have to go to speech therapy and voice lessons.
Your voice is fine. Your voice is fine.
See, but I think yours is too, or right. Probably was too.
It probably was.
Cool. Anyway, thank you. Thanks for being here. I'm so grateful to yeses. You know, when I ask someone to be on, they say yes. I'm very grateful. And I think you have so much medicine to share that fits in way more time than we're going to spend. So hopefully we can, get to some stuff. So your latest venture, you're on you shared with me the website with the program that you launched.
Yep. BeATerrificDad.com.
What is it about?
It's about what it takes to be a terrific dad. I've run across so many young people, and even older people, whose fathers were just so out to lunch. Either they themselves had their own problems, or addicts, or they were abusive, or they were just clueless, narcissistic. There are a lot of dysfunctional men raising families, and their kids come out real basket cases.
Right.
So, and I've dealt with maybe not thousands, but for sure hundreds and hundreds of kids. And it all began when I was in Israel. In the story in Israel, when I was living in Beit Shemesh.
You lived?
Yeah.
Cool. I came back yesterday.
I know. Welcome back.
Good. Thank you. It was amazing.
I miss Israel. Great. I love it there.
So you lived in Ramat Beit Shemesh? How long ago?
I lived there from 2012 to 2016.
Wow. Cool. You made Aliyah?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And Friday nights, my wife was exhausted. She'd fall asleep. So my daughter and I would take a walk around the area, and there's a park called Ayalon Park. Mm-hmm. Throngs of kids, all these kids out there. And the kids were not necessarily there to discuss, Tosos and the Rashba, and they weren't doing mitzvahs out there. They were doing other things that they shouldn't be doing, and the least of which was drugs and alcohol. But you could see like little neshamas, shining little little lights over their heads. So these beautiful souls. And they're misguided perhaps, but they're beautiful souls. And so I just had to do something. And I'm not a really great one for languages, but I'm going to give it a shot. I cared about these kids. Just like these kids, it's such beautiful souls. I got to do something. And so I came back next time prepared. Atem rosim lishmo sipor?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear a story? And I tell my stories in my fractured Hebrew. But they thought it was funny. They would correct me, and the stories had some traction to it. And week after week, talking to the kids, this one and that one. And I have this ability to understand people kind of a deep fashion and start talking to them, get to know them, and give them a hug and this one and the other. But after about a month or two, got to know the kids very well. The same kids coming every week on the Friday night in the park. And after a few months, I just come to cut, and these kids line up. All these kids and they're tough kids. These kids were rejects, and they're with attitude and everything else. And they would actually line up for a hug, a chibuk. They want this hug. And they'd line up. And they told me they waited all week long for that hug.
Wow.
A few seconds, off they go. But over time, I noticed these kids were changing. Look, you can see their eyes.
So what was it that you gave them? The stories, the presence, the being with them?
I think just being with them. They never had the experience of being with a religious male, a religious man who could embrace them and accept them on their turf.
Right. For who they are, the way they are. Right.
And just be there for them. And they loved it. And it would just snowball.
So how does that work as a parent? Because as a parent, And what's often difficult with acceptance is when it's my own. It's like, how can I accept? You know, very often the difficulty or the lash out that a parent has is, okay, part of it could be their own triggers. Like, it brings up, there's really nothing wrong with the circumstance. It's just their own story and their own, you know, narrative, their own fears. And very often it's their own wants for their kids to just do better and be better, which is not working. But it's sometimes easier to accept and hug and love a random kid than one kid their own.
Well,
right?
It depends where you are in the story of the child. Mm-hmm. One thing I found common in all of these kids and all the kids I've dealt with since then, literally hundreds and hundreds of kids, even having one time I was on the plane. I was coming out leading a birth rate trip, and I was coming back, and
oh, you did so much. What else? It's so cool. So you led birthright groups?
Yeah.
So that was while you lived in Israel? Or
no, afterward.
Here?
It was last year.
Wow.
And so I was coming back on the plane. I'm talking to one of those flight attendants. He was talking, and she was concerned I wasn't eating the food because the food going out there I thought was making me sick. So I wasn't going to have it. I brought my own food. But she felt worried about me. We're talking and this and the other, and she got me some food. And she started schmoozing. And through a variety of avenues, she started sharing about her life with me. And we were talking. And I said to her, tell me, did your father ever hug you? Mm-hmm. She said, never. And what I found in all of these kids, all these kids and all the people I run with, these misfit kids who are struggling, their fathers never hugged them. I asked them, no, father never hugged me, never hugged me.
Right.
And
so that's the emphasis on the hug.
The hug
like the presence. It's like, I'm here and I see you.
And I care. I feel, they want to feel a father's hug, different from their mother. Fathers have a different kind of energy, a certain kind of power to the kid. They want to feel their father's strength and the hug and love and security. They
right.
crave
it's like
it.
it's a certain safety, like if the dad gives.
It creates safety and it creates acceptance and it creates security.
Yeah. The I'm not good enough story, the constant I'm not good enough story. That's a daddy thing.
I think so. I think so. The fathers just don't give their kids that sense that I care so deeply.
So again, it's what happens often is that if they'll give the acceptance that you're the good enough message, parents are afraid. They're afraid that, if I accept whatever they do, specifically with teenagers, yeah, I'm like they're just going to go off and do who knows what, and they're going to hurt themselves and their lives and their future and their grades and their degrees and their potential and their relationships, and in the frommer circles their shidduchim and their status. Like, parents, I find, are sometimes, besides their own stuff, it's like they're afraid for their kids. So often what becomes a fight or between parents and kids, it originates from. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, how does a parent navigate that unconditional, you're good enough and I love you, and then to help them navigate life? Well,
okay, that's a many-layered question. It's a very complex question because depends where you're starting in this process. The very beginning with children, if you begin with children when they're younger, you know how to raise the kids and love the kids and direct the kids. Like one of the first programs I have on the beatificdad.com is called Discipline. Discipline to a child equals love. My father taught me that. Discipline is not punishing. That's punishing. Discipline is directing, caring, guiding, loving, giving them boundaries, giving them goals, giving kids need, and of course hugs. That's discipline. Discipline is not punishing.
So discipline isn't the no. It's also the yes.
Yeah.
It's like no to this, yes to this. There is this thing I once heard, like every no, it requires a yes. Every yes requires a no. Otherwise, it's out of balance.
Correct.
Disciplines them and gives them guidance, direction, purpose, helps them with that.
Right, and they know their limit. They know their roles. They know their place. They have, like, for instance, important, no matter how much help you have in the house, kids should have chores. Mm-hmm.
And what age are you thinking of when you're saying, like, depends what age and discipline?
Well, discipline begins at the age of 2.
Oh, wow.
And here's how it begins. Begins when they're 2 years old. I'll tell the kids, come to Tati. Every so often, they all do the exact Same thing. They shrug, they go, like, no fall with the head shrink, the shoulder, My wife knows to leave because we're at our first episode of discipline with the child. I'm going to teach him. And so I said, oh, come to Tati. I go, come to Tati. 1, come to Tati. 2, come to Tati. 3. And here is the breaking point. There's a part where most parents fall. They say, they count. I'll count to 3, 2.5, 2.25. No, 3. 3 means the consequence is coming, period. Because when I say 2, you better get a full run. My kids know. When I say 1, when I say 2, they're at a full out run to get done. Otherwise, the punishment is going to come. Now, the punishment is a very interesting punishment. And this is this is what I did. Not every father can do this. But here's what I did. And we're on video, right? I'm going to show you something here. I'm going to give them your left hand. I'll say to the kids, you won't listen to my mouth, listen to my hands. A light little tap. It's never hard, never a punch, never, ever. Never touch a child when you're angry. It doesn't work and it ruins everything. It's a gentle tap in the hand, and look, and all of a sudden they start crying. There's no pain involved, but they know that was disapproved. But then the next important part would be, quick, go over there, come on, come back, and have them run across the room, come back and forth, and get a big hug, and come back and forth, and let them do a chufa thing, where now they're running and playing, and they're practicing listening to Tati. Mm-hmm. Go there, come to Tati. Go there, come back, and come.
So that's something that you would practice at a very, very early age.
2.
Wow.
And by the time they're 3, 4, 5 years, they
now,
don't.
Do you think that an ADHD kid is any different?
Nope.
Really?
Yeah.
My head said I don't buy it.
The only difference is now you have to understand what the kid is. Some kids can be so involved in stuff, they don't hear you.
Oh, that's right.
So
you're saying just to make sure that they actually pay attention.
Correct. Get their attention.
So when I call them, I'm present with them. So I see where they're at, what they're up to.
And also they're tuned. When you hear Tati say go 1, whoop, what? They want 2. They know right away, something's up. So they're tuned. They're already trained from the age of 2 on. When I start counting.
So I got it. So if I miss the boat, that's a whole new ball game.
Right. Now, it depends what age.
So I missed the boat.
Okay.
Okay, my oldest, Shlomo. You know Shlomo?
Probably.
No, so my oldest is, I don't know, he's self-regulated, always has been. Like I remember when he was 8, he would tell me, "Ta, it's my bedtime, time to put me to sleep." So that's why I never expected that I need tools or methods with the little ones. So, but Levi is now 5, and then the other one is 1.5. So I'm like, okay, so what if I missed the boat? At 2, when Levi was 2, I didn't even think I need to think discipline. I didn't even think it's applicable.
Right.
And now he's 5, I'm like, wait, what did I not do? So at this age already, it becomes tug. Like we're tugging.
Yeah, so now once you're already a different stage of life, different stages require different type of techniques. So discipline at this age, you're going to have a bit of a discussion with the child, and have an expectation of here's your job, and you tell me back what's your job to be done. What's the rules here?
So it becomes more conversational,
right? And on their level, what's the rules? And the rule is,
and once we agree on the rules, then I can start setting my boundary or like implement the discipline.
It has to be reasonable expectations. Very important, because you can't expect a 5-year-old to want to put us things away.
Yeah, or every Monday take the trash out.
Right.
Right.
A 5-year-old can say, okay, we know here's a 10-minute warning, bedtime's in 10 minutes, a 10-minute warning for bedtime. And then, okay, 5-minute warning.
And what happens when they don't stick to it? Or
then there's a consequence. They know the consequences are coming. The consequence is...
And the consequence would be the same way played as with a 2-year-old, which means I have to sort of reinforce the love and the acceptance.
Well, no, that's different. At 5 years old, if the consequence is, let's say, for instance, they're not ready for bed, they're still doodling around and not getting ready for bed when they're supposed to. Now that's a whole nother program called bedtime. bedtime is a couple
Right,
hours.
I saw that.
Of how to do bedtime. Because bedtime is a whole mindset. Now, for me, bedtime was easy. All right, kids, one, and they were
Really?
blast the bed, right?
That's wild.
And they knew bedtime entails you got to brush your teeth and you put things away and put their clothes out for the next day, and you daven Kriya Shema, whatever you do. They know what's to be done. Routine, and this routine, kaboom, and you're in bed at this time. There's a warning, and be in bed by this time. If you're in bed early, you get a treat. Read a story.
Wow.
Play a game, do something, you get a special treat if you're ready early. And if you're not ready on time, then there's an
consequence, you said. So it's also agreed upon.
Yeah.
Wow. So your program is full. There's a lot going on.
Right.
So you said it started all in Israel. That's when you notice that there's a lack in that hug.
Yeah.
And that causes a whole bunch of it spirals into unworthiness and suppressed guilt and shame.
Yeah, I didn't know I suppressed guilt and shame. I didn't get there.
I find a lot of suppressed guilt and shame, which ends up becoming masked toughness or blocked feelings for guys. It's like,
That's very true.
I need to toughen myself up, because when I don't, I feel, and when I feel, I meet myself in my not good enough and unworthiness and guilt and shame.
That's right. Okay, I agree. That's
and
true.
The hug feels like a treatment for that.
Yeah.
The hug, the guilt and shame is not there when there's that hug, or that presence and that acceptance. So you came. So how did you come about this? Because your profession is like, as a profession, what do you do as a profession?
I'm a doctor.
In holistic medicine?
No, I'm a board certified in family medicine. I'm a family practice doctor. But I chose a path of medicine called osteopathic medicine rather than allopathic. Allopathic is MDs, and osteopathic is DO. Exact same medical school training,
Really?
Exact same. We have additional work on how to use our hands to diagnose and treat the body.
Really?
Yeah. I treat people's bodies, work with my hands, treat them.
Wow.
And so you can cure a lot of interesting issues you can take care of with.
So you're talking about the emotional issues, or only physical, or both?
Well, you really can extract.
Because I know you from a very therapeutic side of things, but again, as your profession, it's a very, it's a very physical treatment, and like how did you get to working with parents and kids and teens from working with the physical body? Like, how's that bridge even? And do you practice both? Like, you do both in real time?
The effective treatments always have what I call juice behind it. That's the soul, the shum you put into it. You feel what's going on. I have a certain gift. I can read people, understand people in a different kind of way that most people can. So it's a little different for me than most of the doctors. But there's you can feel a person's their energy, what's going on. Is there a sadness? Is there a joy? Is there a fear? Is there an excitement? What's going on inside of them?
And can you sense when it's your own feeling and when it's the other? Like the difference in feeling?
Yeah, that's tricky sometimes. It's very hard. It's
really cool, like, to notice that I find that people that have that developed well, to even develop when it's me and when it's the other, and noticing the difference in that.
Yeah, it's you got to pull back and be brutally honest. Where's this coming from?
That's so wild.
Yeah,
I find it fascinating. Okay, so so what you do is medicine, healing the physical body, and that sort of, then there's a full picture, which is what's behind it and what else, like that's the holistic approach to things. So when you think of dads getting triggered, let's talk of dads because that's the conversation. So a dad getting triggered, what are your thoughts? Trigger. The child doesn't do what I say. Like, I've told you 1,000 times, I work so hard for you. Like, what do you see? What's wrong with that scene? That's so common. Like, I've given so much of myself. I'm like, that common.
Luckily, being a dad, once you become a father, most men start realizing something else is going on besides it's all about them. All right, it's a narcissist, all right, but most guys have a sense something's different now. Well, they should have. Something's different now. Now, the most important stuff to do is look inside. Who are you first? Who's this man that's now a father? Who's this man? What's going on? And the problem is most guys never experience having a father. So many guys, their fathers themselves weren't fathers. They got a whole tradition of being a lousy father. I can sire a child, I can feed him and clothe him, if I don't have to be a father to that child.
What does that mean? What does a lousy dad mean to you? Like when you say they had lousy parents, what does that mean? Like they fed them, they worked, they gave them clothing and shelter, at least for many, and sometimes not, but for many.
But the connection, but the kids really crave the connection.
So when you say a lousy dad, means they didn't know how to connect.
Right. The kids, I was talking to a kid yesterday, and parents got divorced, and the father took very good care. He was a good, honest, hardworking man, provided the family very well, nice, a very nice home, food, clothes, had all the things taken care of. He was well taken care of, but there was no connection. Mm-hmm. And it was.
Is it a friendship that you're after? That you're suggesting?
I'm very clear in my programs. Your kids have many friends throughout life, many teachers. They have one father and one mother. Mm. You're the father, be that man.
So what is that? The connection, it's not a friendship, or it's also friendship?
Friendship's later on. Friendship's later on. You're the father. You set the rules, set the tone. You command the respect. You have a... kids want to connect to their father. They want to be with their father. They want a father image. Naturally, they want that. What's right, what's wrong. What are values or not values? Mm-hmm. Another program I have on the site is going to be values. What are your values, man? What values do you have? What's important to you? What are your values?
So if it first starts with the dad, with myself looking at me.
Yeah.
And that sort of happens with the birth of a child. That sort of next generation is born, or that responsibility.
Responsibility is like a slap in the face for a lot of guys. Whoops, wait a minute, I got something going on over here. This is not so simple. And so there's a great opportunity for a man to step into the father role by looking at himself. What are my values? What's right? What's wrong? What's necessary? What's not necessary? What really nurtures a child? What really gives a kid? The kids come from very deprived backgrounds. They have poor housing, and they have poor clothing, and they get barely enough food. Yet they have wonderful fathers, and they love their fathers, and they grow up, become themselves wonderful men later on in life. Mm-hmm. What's the difference? It's not about materialism, and we see this all the time.
Right, we do see that there's both. Great families with struggles. There's people that come from deprived backgrounds, and they do so wonderful. Like, what is it that that ticks?
That you get blinded. Well, I gave you everything. I gave everything you want. I gave you. What? That's not how you raise a kid. Let the kid earn it. If you want a fine, want a car, fine, earn it. When I was 16 years old,
doesn't that create like a very conditional kind of? Doesn't that become love becomes very conditional?
No, because a person's responsibility, you get pride. I want you to be my son. I want you to be proud. So you earned this. You earned money to buy your clothes.
Okay, so how does unconditional, the unconditional acceptance and love work with that? Because I understand there's chesed and there's gevura, right? So gevura would be all this, like the earning and the boundaries, and then chesed would be some kind of unconditional, like you're just good enough even when you screw up. So how's that work?
You're hitting all of my programs. The next program is let the kids fail and love them.
So all this is not a love language. Love is love.
Love is love. I love my kids. They got different paths, different things, and they fall and they get up. Okay, we all mess up. Everyone screws up. You're supposed to fail. Fail when you're young, when it's safe to fail. Mm. And then
so let them fail and love them. That's a wonderful line.
And then teach them how to succeed next time. You failed, fine. What do you learn from this failure? What do you learn from this? What do you do next time? What's your priority? What's your value? What do you want to do? And you learn from the failure. The fall is what makes you learn. You don't get up without going down first. You got to go down. So what's the fall? Where did you fall off? Let's get back up. Let's go on further. Let's keep moving. Keep moving. Give the kid courage to move forward.
Right.
And so now if you got a kid, unconditional love, you might call give him a kid allowance maybe perhaps. But, it seems so obvious to me to love a kid unconditionally because you're a kid. The problem is, they don't always like the kids.
Right.
The kids likable, which is another program. How to raise likable kids.
Right. Well, whenever a kid is not likable for any reason, it's generally a reflection of the parent, of them not liking themselves.
Yeah, you got it.
It'll always be like that.
Right.
There's no way, it's so interesting how when people pitch to me why they're unworthy, and I'm like, you don't have to convince yourself to be worthy. That comes with breath. Like there is a given that you're worthy. You don't have to do anything to deserve a good life. Like to deserve success. There's nothing that anyone needs to do to deserve that. It comes with breath. It comes with the fact that I'm living means that I am worthy to impact this world and impact my life, and be liked, right, and be loved.
So let's look at it from a different perspective. Unconditional love. Your kid does something, I don't know, stupid. Something happens, breaks, falls, whatever happens. How do you handle the kid? Do you reject the kid? Loser? Call a kid a name? What's wrong with you? No, kid made a mistake. You lost. Okay, fine. Let's get back on. And how do you cultivate the child that it's not about you love because they know it, because you love them and you hug them or hug your kids because you know it. They know it. You hug them, you guide them, make mistakes. You're there with them to help them get to grow and keep going on. Right.
It's a lot of mirroring and empathy, and then throwing in like sparkles of like guidance.
Right. And but the same token, if they make a mistake, they do something wrong and they knew better, they take their hit. Okay, you did something wrong, you own it. And you have to give the child responsibility for their behavior, your choices. You made a choice, I'll help you go further, but you got to take the consequences of that choice. So if you are speeding, got a speeding ticket, not only pay the ticket, you're paying what it costs extra for car insurance.
Right.
If you person breaks the law, but if not breaking the law, it happened in school. You get in trouble at school. Okay, you got in trouble at school, fine, fix it.
Right, because the same unconditional okayness comes with an unconditional fact of consequence. They're both reality.
Right.
So it's like it's so simple to just for me to understand that there's a part of me that's just good enough. And my kid is good enough. So it's also simple for me to understand that certain actions result in certain consequences. It's not a measuring stick of how good enough anyone is.
Letting kids accept their failure. They made a mistake, but I still love you. You made a mistake, fine. You made a mistake. It doesn't affect our relationship. You made a mistake. Right. If you don't correct the mistake, we have a problem. If you hurt me and don't make amends, you've got a problem.
Right, there's a boundary that's needed if that happens, but it's still not a reflection of love.
Correct.
It's specific. You know what I thought, like the other day, I thought like the opportunity to change a brain pattern or a mahalach, like of a way of being, is only when something goes wrong. Like not only, but a lot when something goes wrong. Like when I mess up, that's when I have opportunity for self-acceptance. Like,
this is a major issue in preventative medicine. I'm fine. Why should I take vitamins, exercise? Why should I do these things? I feel fine. Once you get a problem, now well, it's not logical. Of course, you do things before you get a problem, but most people are motivated by all nuts.
Yeah, so there must be a basic regimen of well-being, like just simple things that I do for my sake of well-being, not only when I'm sick, but then there's a part of the brain that like opens up. It's like a Peschili Pesach. The Pesach, the opening, is when I feel bad, because I can't work on feeling good when I feel bad unless I actually feel bad. Like I can't work on myself to feel okay with who I am when I feel bad unless I actually feel bad. So it's like I need to actually feel bad in order to accept myself feeling bad. I'm thinking of adults now. It's like adults that are, the workshops we've done and the people I know we've met together, and I know my work and a lot of the places I've been. It's like adults that are when I'm really working on feeling good enough and okay as an adult. And where's my opportunity? Like if I stay in my comfort zone, there's no opportunity to build more of me. I have no opportunity to build more of me. When my child messes up and I'm triggered, that's when my in is. Okay, now what do I need? Like that's when I have like an opportunity to start working on these core, I guess, beliefs or self beliefs.
call it the gift of failure, the gift of challenge, the gift of whatever it is. It's a gift.
Yeah.
Wakes you up to make a change.
Yeah, I like that. It's a gift.
And so there's motivation to change. Really, you don't change when you're comfortable. No one changes when they're comfortable. The change occurs.
So that's the word. It's the discomfort that allows the opportunity. It's not a mess up. It's the discomfort in it.
Yeah.
So there's there's something in discomfort. Like there's something that it allows.
This is very interesting. A very, very interesting conversation. And that is when failure becomes comfortable.
Right.
There's no need to change to succeed.
Right.
You try doing something and you failed, and you're used to failing. I'm failing, it's fine. It's fine. There's no challenge to.
It feels a lot better sometimes to be in a failure place with certain things than to risk thinking I want to not fail and then fail again. Like it's much easier to just be like, okay, this is not something I know how to do, and that's that.
Yeah, it's look, when you innovate a new program, you may not know about these things. There's a few bumps in the road. Sometimes things don't always go so smoothly.
We spoke about it on the phone. It's like, it's unbelievable how things that seem easy, how much work it takes for it to.
It's enormous. And when some people innovate, it's not working, forget it, just forget it, walk away from it. Had a great idea, it didn't work, and they walk away from it. Those, of course, are the losers. The guys say it didn't work. I know it can work. And they push and they push and they pull and they bang and that didn't work. And up and up and up. And they finally get there and they go forward to success. But I think a lot of people are terrified of success.
Because of the risk of failing.
Well, I'm not sure why. Maybe the risk of being something of showing their own greatness. Mm-hmm. To show how great and wonderful you are. I tell my kids how wonderful they are. You made a mistake? Okay. There's different kinds of leaders in the world. There's the kind of leaders that crush, conquer, and control, right? Another kind of leaders which encourage, empower, and enlighten.
I love it. Crush, conquer, and control versus encourage, enlighten.
And empower.
Wow.
And so I made that myself.
That's beautiful. We're going to snip that into some clip or something because that's really cool. So when you talk about discipline, you talk about guidance, about like empowering.
Empower the kids. You're a great kid. You got the power. You got these talents. You can do these things. Okay, fine. Let's keep going. Keep pushing. Keep going. You can do it. You can do it. And encouraging. Get them going. I was in the Army, and the American Army, and in the Army, then
I want to keep talking for like hours. When were you in the Army?
83 to 86.
Wow. What'd you do?
I was a doctor in the Army.
Wow.
I actually was part of a unit at Fort Detrick. We did research. My job was taking care of human guinea pigs for research for vaccine experiments. We developed vaccines when I was in the Army.
Really?
And so I was taking care of the human guinea pigs who volunteered for vaccine experiments on their body.
What kind of vaccines?
Can't tell you.
Really?
Well, actually, we did malaria, dengue fever.
Really?
Venezuelan equine encephalomyelitis.
Isn't that private pharmaceutical companies that develop that? How does it get to the Army?
Well, the Army, the number one problem with soldiers going overseas is not bullets, is bugs.
Really?
Bugs kill more soldiers than bullets.
So the Army has an interest in vaccines.
Massively.
So that's when they recruit people to volunteer for testing.
Right.
And your job was to care for them?
Yeah.
And they got sick?
They get sick, or they make sure they're okay, so on and so on. That's why when this whole coronavirus came out, I was telling you stuff about it. I know.
Wow.
Behind the scenes stories.
That's wild.
Yeah, the COVID shot is bad idea. I'm going there, but this is bad. And I can back it up with a lot of information. But
so how'd you get in? Like you had to go through training in order to work for the Army?
Well, I was in a military scholarship for medical school. So at the time it was quite an honor actually, the kind of scholarship. And so then to pay back with time.
Wow. So basically you owe them time.
Right.
Wow. Where was this? Where were you stationed?
In Fort Detrick, Maryland. Frederick, Maryland.
Wow. And you slept at home and you went out every day? Wow. Okay. So what was that like? What'd you learn? What you learn, what you teach, how is it different?
my military experience is an amazing experience. Especially looking back at the time, it doesn't always feel so good. But I learned a lot of stuff. I learned a lot from military training. Typically, now I was an officer basic training, but even the basic training, they try to break you down to build you up, push you to your limit, and then to build you up to how you can serve.
I'm contemplating if it works for everyone these days. Like I'm constantly thinking, I'm thinking of myself and I'm like, what do I need? Do I need acceptance and let it sort of grow? Or do I need that? You know, it's like, it's something that looking at you, I always think like you somehow embrace both. Like somehow you have this, you have this real kind, gentle acceptance, and I know you don't take weakness as a it's not your thing. So, but in my head, it's like either or, and I think that a lot of the stuff you've been saying is almost like, how do we do both? How do we like break and build and constantly stand up, and also like the chesed.
Well, it's motivation is the chesed. I want you to succeed, and I may be tough on you, but I want you to succeed.
Right.
So a real coach, I'm going to coach you and say, you're screwing up repeatedly and making the same mistakes. What's the value? What's your problem that you're making the same mistakes? And then call you on it and push you through it. So you make a mistake. Say, for instance, a person wants to be make a lot of money. And they keep failing and failing. Why? Where's the failing point? What priority do you have over making your job successful? What's your prioritizing? Where are you prioritizing your life that you're hurting yourself?
Often it's comfort. Often it's like boundaries with money is boundaries is the ability to be in discomfort. So right,
yeah.
That's
if you're afraid of discomfort, you'll never succeed. You have to learn how to embrace pain.
Who?
You have to learn how to embrace pain. And pain, it just hurts. It's just pain. It's pain.
It's the story behind the pain is why people don't want it. Wow.
I'll tell you a personal story. Many years ago, my first time having a kidney stone. Ever have kidney stones?
My dad.
Oh my, it's awful. I mean, man. I have a pretty high threshold, and that got me, I was rolling. Anyway, and I was just newly married. I was actually in my internship. I was working incredible hours. Because I couldn't work on Shabbos, I had to work extra hours on the weekdays. Wow. So I was working, 36 hours on, 12 hours off. I was working like crazy hours. And a lot of stress and pressure. And then it gets to you after a while. And I was newlywed. It was all the things at once. And so I developed a kidney stone. Now, kidney stones are called unshed tears, for reference. They're always a result of stress.
Really?
Kidney stones, yeah. Kidney stones, they're suffering emotionally inside. And didn't know at the time, but I knew, I said, wait a second. I said, this is a kidney stone. I diagnosed myself with a kidney stone. And there I am, and I'm on the floor rolling angry. It was really rough.
While you're working?
Well, no, I was home. I think it was a Sunday, I think. Right. And I told my wife, I said, look, don't worry. It's just pain. It's just pain. I'm not going to die. It's just pain. And of course, it was a lot of pain. But you learn it's just pain.
Right. That's the distinction. There's I once heard that distinction between pain and suffering. Like pain is pain, and suffering is the story I tell myself about the pain. So
right.
If someone falls down, they break their arm, the arm hurts, and it is what it is, and it needs the care and the treatment and whatever it needs. But then when I tell myself I'm such an idiot for falling down, that's a whole other thing.
Right. And even getting your teeth drilled and filled, right? The dentist, right? That sound that goes into your teeth. The truth is, it's not that much pain. Just this fear of it is so intense. So if you get rid of the fear, learn to breathe. You don't need Novocaine. And I learned that many, many years ago. I actually learned it while I was with my wife. We were learning Lamaze training for childbirth. So I can do this too. And I can get my teeth drilled and filled without Novocaine. And you can do it. When you get rid of the fear of the pain, right. It's not dangerous, it's just pain. Sometimes pain is dangerous. Sometimes it's danger. There is dangerous pain. But in most cases, it's not. It's just pain.
Right. Right, but even within danger, it's like there's the story of the danger and then there's the clean, like it needs to be dealt with.
Right.
So what you're referring to is cleaning up the story around it so I can like look at things and know what's what and understand better. Where do I want to put money? Where do I not want to? How do I want to spend my money? We're talking about money as an example. Okay, back to Army. So you said that one of the things that was fascinating is the training.
Training, and they try to break you down to build you up. They break.
Does it ever not work? This thing, like when does it not work? Or
I don't know. I think that a lot of people, it doesn't work when people feel they can get away without cooperating. Mm-hmm. Now it does fail sometimes when they force somebody, and to the point where the person they're so overpowered by their DS drill sergeant, or they're so overpowered they become resentful because they don't see the benefit of it.
So there's a bitterness that starts happening.
Yeah.
And then then the soldier would just fall out, like it wouldn't work.
Or later on in life, they reject it. I'll never do that again. I'll have enough environment. And they spend the whole life fighting their experience in the military. And so, because they don't see the benefit of it, they don't understand.
Right.
So if you understand that sometimes things happen in life, it's a training ground. There's an opportunity to growth, an opportunity for growth, personal growth. Okay, you get that, then you can move forward. It's not so terrible. Made a mistake, that's fine, I can move forward. The stuff is still there, junk is still there. That bucket of all that smelly stuff is still there. It's not going to go away, but it doesn't have to weigh you down anymore. It can actually be a means of moving forward. Look at, okay, I can make this better, and work it out, and pull the junk out, look at it again, and then move forward with it. But the courage to move forward is a big issue. The courage to move forward in the face of failure, face of humiliation.
You know, I meet people that are so tired of failing. So tired of failing.
Wow.
It's like as a whole. Like,
why do you think that is? Why are they tired of failing?
My coach always brings me to a specific. Like that's a life story, and that's not what we're dealing with. We're probably dealing with something very specific. I think it's like when looking at the bigger picture of things, it's like there is a promise, an American Hollywood, you know, it's a promise, or at least looking at others when, you know, it looks rosy and it looks easy, it looks like failure. Like when things are difficult and a bunch of things don't work the way I expect it to work, it looks like it's just failure all across.
So you said that it looks like.
Yeah.
But if you took failure as an opportunity to learn how to do it better next time, and then you changed what you did to do it better next time.
Right. So the tiredness comes from not believing that it can actually get better.
There we go.
It's like giving up on the dream or on the vision or on the value. It's like, you know what, I had this value when I was younger, and after 15 years of trying and it's still not happening, and I know that you've never stopped, and you have kept going, and that's why I know I can. It's not like you know what it's like to want to give up and then to not, and you know that's very, very inspiring. So that's why I know you have a thought about that. But after 15 years of trying and it's not happening, then people stop believing that they actually can. There must be something wrong with me or with my muzzle or with this or with that.
Could be true. Could be true. We're just try something different. Right. Maybe they're trying the wrong thing. Maybe they're trying they're trying the wrong thing over and over again. And maybe they're going to change what they're trying. Maybe there is a problem with their muzzle. Maybe there's something that they've vexed somebody and they've hurt somebody that didn't make amends. Maybe they have been a jerk in the past and need to fix that and work that up. You know, there's different reasons. It's
interesting because I find a lot of people that are not jerks and they think that that's what stands in their way of success, specifically financial and business, and right, because they see others that are, you know, tough and aggressive and arrogant, and they're doing well, at least financially. So it seems sometimes that the softness is what stands in the way, where, like, you know,
that's what they see on the outside. You know, I saw this great picture. It's a picture. There's a mirror and an apple, and the apple has a bite taken out of it. The part that's shown to the mirror is a part that does not have a bite taken out of it. Look at the picture. You take a picture, you see the mirror, and you see the mirror shows,
you see a whole apple.
A perfect
and
apple.
From the other side, you see the bite.
Right, it's broken. So, and so often we look at it, we see a picture and think, oh, that person must be this, that, and that must be so wonderful and perfect and everything else. Give me a break. You can't be a bum. You can't be a jerk and get away with it.
Right.
Your family knows it.
Right.
People have a lot of power and money. They may get people's attention. They don't get love, don't get respect.
Right. So before I want to be like that person, I'm not so sure I want to be like them. Right.
It's true.
So today I saw this. I saw this quote. It said, "You can't be anything you want, but you can be everything you are. You cannot be anything you want to be, like that person or the other person, but I could be everything I am." Which is to say that a lot of the trying and failing is trying to be like that person, which is not even accurate because I don't know what they are. It's like the apple.
That's whole discussion. That's a whole different topic because that's true. That people get hung up on that. I've fallen in that trap before. I'm falling into it. We all fall in that trap. I don't know, you may have a few, but I shouldn't have fallen into that trap. It'd be like, why can't I be? Because I can't.
Right. At the end, I think the common thing that I find, I'm fascinated for the last, I think it's the last few months when I meet people and they're 100% congruent in themselves, and whatever they do, if it's a hotel receptionist or a waitress or a doctor, but there are these people that stand out to me because they're so congruent in what they're doing. And it's clear that they cannot do anything else. Right. Like that's the kind of success. That's the kind of drive that brings, I think, success at the end. It's to be in my own skin fully and let that and build that, rather than be like what looks like successful from the outside. Wait.
Using a very kind of interesting word without defining it. What does success mean?
Okay.
You get what successful mean. Rich is not successful.
No, I'm not talking about
what's success. What's success?
When I say success is like, I guess, good at what I do.
Is that successful?
No.
What is it? Maybe they're devoid of a loving relationship. Maybe they're not married or no children.
Right. So I'm obviously seeing only one aspect.
Right. So success in their career, maybe perhaps.
Right. Yeah. I'm totally seeing one dimension. Right. But in that dimension, I see congruency. So that's another thing to know. Like it's not a all or nothing thing. Like I could be better in one thing and less good in another.
But at what price success? In your career, at what price of success? I was lucky to be part of a very high-powered group of young men for quite a few years. Real movers and shakers and moving up and all kind of stuff, And these are great, they're smart, clever, hardworking, hard-hitting,
This group of people.
These group of guys. And these guys are all moving up.
And what, financially?
In their profession and their careers and everything else. But I couldn't keep up with them because I had a family to take care of. I had other priorities in life. And now they're all in their 60s. And all these highly successful guys and gals, lonely. Because they were so successful in their career. They didn't know what success meant. And they were making fun of me at the time. Yeah, well, you make a choice. You take your family, your kids. But me, we're moving up. And now look at these guys. It's so pathetic. It's so pathetic. And it's almost 100%, almost 100% are just lost puppies. They have no one to share life with. If they're married at all, they don't have kids. If they kids, maybe one. Grandchildren, maybe one or two. Nothing's zeroed.
Right.
So they thought they were successful.
Right.
But now, looking back, miserable.
Right. So it's an important thing to look at. Like before I go and I want to be like that person or like the other person, do I really? Right. And what I'm aiming for, am I not really successful in what I really want?
Right.
Right. So sometimes it's just a trick, like the brain plays a trick.
And the hard part is when the people who are successful moving up in their professions and their finance and career and everything else, and they look down and say, yeah, I know. Look, yeah, that's a nice little car you got there. And then, they're having their Mercedes, like the car means something. But they start making comments and subtle little things, And And it becomes they force or try to force on you, try to force on me at least for sure, the sense of they're the haves, I'm the have not.
Right. So I think that's the general American dream kind of, I once heard that the entire concept of a homeowner's like success of being a homeowner was invented by banks, that at one point I don't know in which era they are the ones that pitched in TV ads that owning a home is like a status. Like I've reached something in my life when I own my own home, because it fills their pockets, this dream.
Good move. Now see, that's successful thinking.
Right.
Brilliant move.
And I've heard recently that like sometimes I guess it really depends like where a person lives and what the rent is and what the home cost is. But for sure, like a basic home over a big home is more successful to have the smaller and invest the money rather than having the big home. But then from a bank's sales pitch perspective, no, the bigger the home, the more successful am I. Despite that 90% of it is owned by the bank and they're raking in interest, but I start telling myself that this is success.
Right.
So I like that you pinned that, because when people would say, or if I start thinking that after 15 years I'm tired, who said I don't have half of what I wished for?
Maybe all.
Yeah, at least. Right. Which brings us to the gratitude practice, like how the power of, I know that gratitude practice for me at first it's like, yeah, what is it really helping? But then it becomes a ripple effect. Like it's like starts like, oh, and I have this, oh, and I have this, and I drive a car, and I have money for the fuel for the car, and I have insurance, and I have and it's working, and I have my cell phone, and I have a newer cell phone, and it's like these little things start becoming valuable. And
yeah, that's another thing, the gratitude thing. It's two parts like gratitude, One thing I say gratitude for, look at what you've got. It's amazing. It's amazing what you've got. Other hand, say, yeah, but you think about it, 120, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, even parts of the world nowadays, they have dirt floors.
Right.
You look back in the shtetl. Those are miserable. Shtetls are miserable.
Those shtetls were miserable.
They were.
Right.
They were, and you had the streets were full of horse manure and sewage. You had dirt floors. Maybe you had heat in the house. Maybe you had a pair of shoes or shared a pair of shoes and a coat. People had so little. We have now homes that are warm in the winter and cool in the summer, floors, real live floors, indoor plumbing, abundant fresh clean water. We have clothing, more clothing than we need, and it's cheap. The problem with food, we have so much food, we're all fat. We have too much food. We have so much free time on our hands. We have
like boredom is the issue.
And right, with boredom. And they say, well, I don't have. We don't have. Years ago, we would be living a poor personality would be considered rich back in the 200 years ago.
Right.
And we have so little appreciation of what we have. Wait a second. You got healthcare, you got food, clothing,
medicine,
shelter.
Right.
You got opportunities. And what are you complaining about? Because your car is not a new car?
Right.
What? And we were so distorted.
Right. So that tiredness, right? That tiredness that I mentioned before comes from that. A lot of it comes from that expectation, which is not even realistic in history. Like looking back in history, like what am I so upset about? Like seriously? Going
back to becoming a terrific dad is giving your kids that sense of connection, security, and appreciation.
Right. That equals safety.
Yeah, you have homes, have a nice Shabbos table, and food, and you can enjoy things. Okay, there's a bigger house over there, and but that's not necessary. Right. And what my parents forget, kids don't really care about that stuff.
Right.
They do not care about the big house.
Right. That's why that rant of all I'm doing, who am I really doing it for?
Right.
Like how much of what I'm doing is really of service to the child, and how much is it for me to satisfy whatever it is.
What do you produce? What do you give in the child in their subconscious? You know, the majority of our brain power is subconscious. Things learned and heard and said in the background. Someone can say to you just off the cuff, Motty, he's a jerk. And just subtle comment. Or, Motty, wow, what a terrific guy. Just subtly, not even to you, but somebody else hears, someone overhearing it. Say, man, this guy's what a terrific guy. And that somehow implants in your brain that you're a terrific guy. And then throughout life, you handle things better. That subconscious message, what it comes across. And as a dad, if kids know that you respect certain things, you respect, I don't know, cleanliness, or you respect, or you have a value in effort, not necessarily being the best, but who are you doing the job? They see what kind of person you respect. The kids learn what they live. You can preach. When I was a kid, we had this saying. The parents had this saying, don't do as I say, do as I. Don't do as I say. Remember that? Ever heard that?
Don't what?
Don't do as I do as I say.
Right.
That was very common back in my day. I would have thought, what a jerk.
Right. It doesn't work like that because kids follow. I once heard this line, we wound where we're wounded. So that's just how it works. Right.
Or hurt people hurt people.
Right.
All these cliches. It is true. The cliches are real. They're real cliches. But anyway, so to cultivate in a person, in a young person, becoming an adult, when to cultivate a sense of worthiness, a sense of acceptance, being loved, being lovable, being loving, all these things, and also what is real success. What does it really mean?
Right. That feels like, from what we've spoken, like it's such a primal piece to everything. It's like, what does the word success mean?
Yeah.
And that'll create the values in my head and in my heart. And that'll sort of set a tone in my home, you know? Right. It seems like success is this word that takes up so much, creates so much expectations from parents to kids, from parents within themselves, from life, worry, pressure. It's like success. Yeah. And yeah.
And that goes into your values. So if your values are, make a choice, make a chart. And I made a chart. I'm going to post it on the platform. Values, different categories. There's learning, values of giving, values of health, values of wealth, values of sharing. Different kinds of values you have. What's really your value? And you have what you clear your values are. You say, oh, this all fits my values. I'm pretty successful. I'm doing pretty good.
Right. Because I put it against something that's valuable to me.
Yes. Oh, you have that, but you sacrifice this for that. You made a bad choice.
Right.
Made a bad choice, and made what are good choices.
Right.
And so, like, what's the value? What do you really want to have? What do you really want to have? I had an inspiring moment many years ago. I guess it's close to almost 40 years ago. There was a certain rabbi whose daughter was living in Baltimore. And this guy had a sparkle in his eye. This guy was a gem. He's this guy that smiled, a real smile. You know, he just couldn't, he felt happy. And walking at his shul one time, and his grandkids just dancing around, literally just dancing around their grandfather's 80s, dancing around him. I said, that's what I want.
Right.
That's what I want.
Right. To literally dance.
Literally dancing around them. And he was just talking, just being who he was.
Wow.
He just loved being around them.
Right.
So now, okay, he didn't have a big home or a big car, and nothing.
On my flight back, I watched this movie. I think I shared it with 5 people so far. It's like how did I not see this till now? And it's called Patch Adams.
Oh yeah.
That's the medicine you're talking about. You know the movie?
I never saw it. I never saw the movie.
So he basically checked himself into a mental institution because he was suicidal and struggling, and he couldn't keep a job for more than, he's in his 40s. And he's in there, and this is the 70s, and the doctors were very like not making eye contact or connecting with their patients.
Like Asperger's.
Basically. And it's apparently a true story. So he he's in there and he starts seeing that the doctors are doing nothing. And he had a roommate that had imaginary squirrels, so he couldn't go to the bathroom at night because he was scared of the squirrels. So he started like playing along and basically creating laughter, like in group circle. He just like he would just get everyone to crack up in just tears, laughter, and he would just play along, like, let's go shoot the squirrels, and like just pretend and play along. And he noticed that everyone is better, including himself. It just works, like and while the doctor wasn't even looking up at the patient, so he left the mental like institution. He left against the doctor's advice, and he went to college to become a doctor. With the goal was to help people in the way he knows people can be helped, and everyone was against him because back then it's about being a doctor was only about I can't help someone if I'm on the same level. It's right. being up there.
It's paternalistic, actually. Paternalistic.
Yeah, and he fought, and his goal was to provide loving care. And like everyone fought him and people were against him. And they saw that the overall health in the hospital where he was part of was better, more than overall. Like specific people's health were better because that good word and the laughter and the smiles, like it was actually making a physical impact on people's health. Like their mindset actually affected their body's way of healing. So, with that, like people that feel stuck, what do you think, how much of it do you think could be a physical part that's lacking? Like how much, like so much, there's a lot of, at least in my circles, there's a lot of therapizing and how much of it is sometimes like I'm repeatedly stuck. What, when you look at it holistically from a medical and emotional, like how much, like if a parent keeps snapping, like do you think there's a physical aspect to it?
Heck yeah. I'll give you an example. TBI, traumatic brain injury. Somebody gets hit in their head, head injury. Kids playing sports, fall, bang, whatever it is. There's oftentimes a personality change that follows that.
Really?
They become irritable. They can't be consoled. They don't rest well. They can't wait. They don't rest. They don't sleep well. There's just something's off about them. And until you fix that head, they're going to be miserable. I'll give you an example. ADHD is very common. ADHD. There's different kinds of ADHD, but here's one you notice. If a kid can be focused on something of interest, a book, a project, like they really get hyper-focused on that stuff. Yet, when they're not interested, they're off the walls.
Right.
These kids have had head injuries.
Really?
It's almost 100% head and neck injury.
Wow.
I've treated dozens of these kids.
How do you treat that?
Manipulation, working on them in the head
like
and neck.
Physical?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you release the tension in the head and neck, and the change is like poof.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you think that if a parent or a person is irritable and can't, like, even though I know better, but I can't somehow get a grip on myself, it's a physical block?
Could be a physical block.
Or an injury or like a trauma in the body?
A trauma in the body. Could also be nutritional. What are you eating? What are you eating? Eating junk? Well, if you're eating junk, how do you expect your body to be well if you're eating junk? Or another popular one. I'm going to post this actually. You can get a preempt on this one. People are waking up, they're being tired a lot. Tired. Get plenty of tired. Ask them, are you watching your screen at nighttime?
Right.
Looking at the screen with an hour of bedtime before bedtime, even 2 hours sometimes, you will have disrupted REM sleep. You cannot rest well.
Right, because the light takes away the sleep chemical.
Right. Interferes with your REM sleep.
Which is the opposite. In order to wake up and be awake is to look at light. Right.
But this is blue light from the computer. Screens are different. Blue light from the computer screens really damages the brain at nighttime. It damages the brain so you can't rest.
Right.
And the proof is you wake up and you're tired.
Wow.
So people then do something even more interesting. They drink coffee. Right? Go wake up, a cup of coffee, cup of Joe, cup of coffee. Well, if you drink coffee past 12 o'clock or tea, green tea or black tea.
That's caffeinated only?
That's caffeinated. Okay. Past 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It will also disrupt your sleep architecture, your REM sleep. So now you've got another double whammy. You've got the whammy of caffeine. You can sleep, but they don't rest. The proof is in the morning, what do? They wake up, they have a cup of
coffee.
Because they can't wake up. They're tired.
Right.
So if you're watching a screen at nighttime,
and drinking coffee late in the day, I will be tired.
You cannot feel rested.
Mm.
You can get a high from drinking caffeine, but you're not rested.
Right.
So
or energized.
Right. So now you got to function, and now what happens? You're tired, and the kids are being normal kids, acting out. What do? How do you handle it?
Plots.
Yeah, you explode.
Right.
Because you can't take it. You can't take it. And when you're tired, you get so irritable and agitated. That's how people when they're tired. What happens? Right. And so you act irresponsibly. Now you've got
a big physical component to having the ability to be present and
Right. So now you have brain chemistry, you have sleep cycles, you have structure function relationships, and those three things will count for most people's.
What's the third one? Structure function relationships.
Mm-hmm. The neck or head is locked up and tight.
Right.
Your brain doesn't function well. I'll tell you a little interesting tidbit. The brain actually pulses between 8 and 12 times a minute, expands, contracts, different than the heart. It expands, called the cranial rhythmic impulse, CRI, cranial rhythmic impulse.
So it does that.
It coils and uncoils. And the skull around it, there are 22 bones in the head. They're supposed to move along with the movement of the brain. If your skull is somehow locked up someplace, either from a trauma, maybe from a trauma of some sorts, and it doesn't move well, the brain can't move well either within that skull.
So that creates a constant tension?
Tension, and it creates a dysfunction.
So the brain does that physically? It actually expands and retracts?
Yeah, we have scans.
And if it doesn't do that, there is tension.
And there's
irritation.
Somebody's going to malfunction. Somebody's going to malfunction in the brain. Now, we see this in another interesting way. We see this a lot. What does every pediatrician tell you to do with babies? Back to sleep. Sleep on your back. Keep the kids on their back.
Right.
Right? Back to sleep. What do you notice about these kids? The backs of their head are round or flat. They're flattened. You can see the face is like big, face is always round, big, real wide round face, and the eyes slightly bulging, like blown up, because the back head is compressed, is flat. Now, every organ in the body, there are no straight lines in the body. As you can tell if it's a fracture or not. Look at X-ray. If there's a straight line, you know there's a fracture. There are no straight lines. Everything in the body is curved. If you take any organ in the body and you flatten it, what happens to the function of that organ? Is enhanced or is inhibited? What do you think?
It's fractured.
It's inhibited.
Right.
You take any organ in the body and you flatten it. So what happens
to the brain if it's flattened?
If you flatten any organ, it distorts its function.
Really?
We have seen changes in IQ and behaviors with kids with flat heads. Because the brain is now flattened. It can't turn its normal rounded shape.
Wow.
So all these parents trying to do the right thing, back to sleep, back to sleep, back to sleep.
People are afraid of baby death.
Oh, SIDS, right? Crib death. That's a whole nother discussion. Why would a normal, healthy child die suddenly?
And even with putting them on the back, it's also a mystery. Right. It's like, okay, put on the back, but we still don't know.
Right. And so now we have all these kids with flat heads.
It's very scary. I know when our kids were little, it's like it's very scary that first year.
Yeah.
But you don't think that putting them on the back is a...
There is some correlation. Back on the back seems to help.
But is it worth it, what you're saying? Or maybe just for the first year and then...
Well, there's an interesting correlations of SIDS. There's now something called SADS, sudden adult death syndrome. Since 2021, incidence of sudden adult death syndrome has skyrocketed. Just skyrocketed.
Wow. So
adults is dropping dead suddenly. It's all over the place.
That's COVID stuff now.
Yeah. Not from the disease. From the shot.
Right.
And they're trying to deny it, but it's ramped up so high. Talking millions of people around the world, millions of deaths from this stuff. It's really a sudden adult death syndrome, and it's just snowballing like crazy. There's a lot of thinking of that the SIDS is related to the Tdap.
And what is that?
The tetanus diphtheria shot. As it's within I think 4 to 6 weeks of the Tdap when they have the highest risk of SIDS.
Wow. Right. So you suggest to put babies on their backs for the first year, or
no?
Wow. Yeah. Our babies didn't sleep. They wouldn't,
Yeah, they sleep on the belly fine. Now, there's so many caveats to that.
So that's right. So that's the physical. So there's so many physical components to irritability and anxiety and being a good dad.
And also, how do you handle stress? How do you handle the stuff? You're working your ding dongs off, really trying hard, and you can't make enough money. Your boss is ragging on you, and you come home. How do you come home and be a normal, healthy, loving dad?
Because the stress is there, and with the current economical shifts, it's a shift, and we're in the beginning of it. And there's an imbalance, like with costs and income. There's just for a lot of people.
Right.
So how does one be a good dad?
First of all,
themselves, to their families.
First, recognize it's not your fault. The second thing is learn how to breathe. I'll teach you. We'll do a 3-minute, less than that, a 1-minute breathing exercise. And you're going to take a deep breath. You're going to hold it for 10 seconds, and exhale for 9 seconds, and do it 3 times in a row.
Okay.
I'll count it out. Don't worry. I'll show you. And listening, you can do this also. You can do it when you're driving. It's okay. You keep your eyes open, and not one of these close your eyes. No. Keep your eyes open. Look around if you want to. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Hold it for 10 seconds. Exhale. Deep breath. Hold it. Exhale. Deep breath. Exhale.
That was a trip.
Yeah.
I have no words.
Yeah, cool.
Like my brain silenced and my body's calm. Yeah, breath work is something.
Right.
Because it instantly changes the chemistry of the body. It's like whatever happens in the brain, which is anxiety, does breathwork techniques will do the opposite.
Nishama is Nishima, right?
Right, it's the same letters. Right, so coming home, 1 is it's not your fault. 2 is
breathe. Bring in the house, take a minute and breathe. Or you can get home in the house. Guys, got to breathe. Got to breathe for 1 minute. Everyone breathe together. We're all breathing together for 1 minute. I think having a clear picture of values, share with your wife and the kids, you know what the values are.
Right, to write them, to speak about them. So it's not just out there. So it's here and present. That's where I go back to. So we fall, and where do we go back? It's to the values.
How your voice sounds so different. You're breathing. You know how different you sound?
Right.
Isn't it great?
It is. My brain is mostly blank.
Right. There's sometimes coming home, it's just rough.
Right.
Kids are going bounce the walls, and someone's hungry, and this and that. And it's like, luckily we have cell phones. We can always call home before we get there, and or check in with their wife or the kids. We check in. We're coming home. What's going on? Watch out! I'm hungry.
Right. Because the talking beforehand is so valuable, I've learned. I mean, Layli taught me that. Like the planning is so valuable, and sometimes people don't want to check in because they're afraid of what they're going to hear. And it's so much better to know beforehand so I can take that breath. Like in anything, it's probably the mature thing to do is to know. Just reality is mature.
Right. There's also, the other issues we have. We're talking to the men coming home from work, but what if the woman is a breadwinner? How does a man be a terrific dad? How do you handle that? The stresses. Your wife, both you and your wife are working, or she's working, you're home. There's a lot of dynamic issues. But all of those things have the exact same problem at its root, at its source. Is your values.
Right. And agreeing on them.
Agreeing on the values.
So what happens a lot is like, what happens with people that like things change, like the values change, goals change in a couple. Like how do people like what happens then?
This is something which I did not have. I didn't even know I needed it when going through. My wife, we agreed on most things. A few things we had different values. And we struggled with bedtime for the kids. She was brought up as going to bed was a punishment. Go to bed as a punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, bedtime is therefore now a punishment time. It's a bad thing. I mean, bedtime is great. You get a chance to go to sleep, get refreshed, get energized. Next day is good. And so it was a really rough time, bedtime. We finally got resolved, went to a third party.
Right.
Someone to talk between the two of you. Let's figure this out. What's the issue? Benefits, liabilities, risk-benefit ratios, and make a decision we can agree with.
Right.
And so we need a third party.
Right.
Whether it's a close friend, or it's a rabbi, it's a therapist.
Right. So when
or
people like start going their own ways, which is healthy in a sense, I develop my identity. Specifically, if people marry really young, it makes sense that people change. It's then to find, okay, so where do we meet, and on what do we meet, and what makes most sense, and what is most valuable,
right,
to agree on. I want to hear more Army stuff, and more about ADHD. Because I'm noticing that ADHD used to be a diagnosis of an illness, and now it's just a way of a brain functions best. Like there's an ADHD brain, and there's other brains, and there's not, or ADD. But it's like, but then to expect that this kind of operating system should work the same as the other kind of operating system becomes a turmoil and a constant mess.
Yeah. And the ADHD brains. Well, first of all, how do we treat ADHD? We treat it with amphetamines, right? Ritalin, Adderall, all the rest of the spin-off drugs. And they're just stimulants. Why? Because oftentimes the kids are what? Kids are tired. Tired kids bounce off the walls. They're hyper. They can't stay focused.
Right. Miriam Madahan mentioned to me on our drive to the studio, she mentioned about like ADHD and really, really focusing on sleep, and enough sleep and a lot of sleep and food. Because as soon as any of those two are missing, that's one reason for the brain to not being able to regulate. But yeah.
I'm glad she was listening. She and I have had many conversations about this stuff. And it's true. It's the food choices and the sleep. Kids aren't getting enough rest.
But what about school system? Like, how is the ADHD brain supposed to like manage? What are they like?
So we have
school system, adults with work, and like how is functioning supposed to work?
Okay, we have 3 layers out. We have 3 layers we're talking right now. First of all, the kids coming in handicapped, being tired, not having proper bedtime. Then the kids usually eating bad food because they want sugar food to get themselves a little mental boost, which then sugar goes up and down and crashes. They get hypoglycemic and they get wacky and they can't focus. And now you've got a tired kid who's eating bad food and has no fuel for the brain, can't function properly.
Right.
And now you have a school system not designed for these kids. Schools designed.
These kids, we're talking about a half a class. I don't know what the diagnosis rate is, but from people I know, I don't know real numbers. I know just people I know. Like I think there's. I don't know if I
say better myself.
Like, but it's like I meet just as many people that are ADHD than are not. Almost, it's like it's a type of brain. But then a school is not designed for ADHD brains.
Well, what they've done made it even worse because they agitate the brains even more. I'll tell you one treatment for ADHD brains. Have them run real hard for 10 minutes. Run real hard. I have a nephew out from Bel Air who was just featured, I think it was in Omni magazine.
Yeah.
And how he gets his kids, makes his kids active. Run,
just
jump. Move. Can't expect kids, especially boys. Boys are not girls. They're very different. I'm sorry if burst your bubble, folks. Boys and girls are different. Different ideas and perspectives and moving, everything. We're very different. And boys need to move around. They need to be active. And they need to jump around and bounce off the wall sometimes. Like, fine. They need to they give them something to do and they can think better. Fine. Maybe kids need to run for 10 minutes and they can think better. I mean, you want to watch. I mean, the greatest punch for a kid, take away a kid's recess for now the kid's off the wall.
Right. So what do parents do? Like I'm thinking of my kids in schools, and I'm not liking anything because I don't think it caters to their brains. I'm like. I didn't diagnose Levi formally, but I know what he enjoys and where he's happiest and where he strives, and I know where he's not. And I'm thinking of a regular school system, and I'm like, how is he gonna survive? I know I didn't do well. Like box me in the classroom for 8 hours a day, it does not work. I was just not there.
So
what's the answer? What should parents do?
I look at the basics. Are they getting enough sleep? Are they waking up refreshed? Are they waking up tired?
Okay, and then food.
Then what food are you feeding them?
Okay, and then the classroom becomes okay?
And oftentimes it does. Then
really?
Then I look at the kids' activity. Are they being active enough? All my kids had a little hard time, especially my sons, had a real hard time in school until I got them into karate.
Wow.
And they got been quite good at karate.
So you believe that the sleep, the food, and movement will help, sitting in a regular school class?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Get energy out, get the body fit and moving and feeling strong and focused. Karate was great for my boys. Had the right kind
Right,
of,
because every ADHD person knows that they can hyperfocus. So the focus is there. It's not like it's a lack of focus. It's almost a need for other things too.
Right. And then check, is there a problem with the body structure? Something wrong with the head and neck, or the body is somehow out of balance. And it really is the extent of it, of how important these things are. I had one of my daughters, was a very, very sweet, gentle, just sweet, sweet child. And she became agitated and angry and screaming and acting out. What is with this kid? Of course, go to your room, you kind of stuff parents do. And I said, wait, something's wrong. It doesn't make any sense. This child's nature is a sweet nature. Why is the child acting out now? What's going on? I said, let me feel your head for a second. I said, what happened? What happened? I said to her. She's a little girl, 6, 7 years old. Well, she was very tired one day. Like my wife, we had a discussion about bedtime, and she was up too late. And she was taking a little nap on the bus going to school. And she sat on the side by the window, had her head resting on the window, which bang, 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 head was bang on the window,
Really?
bang, 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 bang. And it started her head and neck. And she was just off the wall. I treated her, head and neck, and then bam, it was like magic.
So for people that can't reach you, what practitioner are they looking for?
You can find the best is going to be an osteopathic physician who does cranial osteopathy. That's going to be the highest, the best, because you have to get a lot of tests to get that certification. You have to go a lot to get there.
Wow.
Craniosacral therapists, some are very talented, very good.
Wow.
Some chiropractors that kind of work, some do, some don't.
Right.
You got to look and find out who's
So we set up the discipline, the emotional part, the boundaries, the love, the hugs, and then we look at, okay, what else is blocking? And that's a very holistic.
Right.
That's a very holistic approach. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Sometimes the kids have visual problems. They can't see as well. And there's something called Erlen. Erlen, which means they don't see. Had a guy, he was like almost 40 years old. He's a very smart guy. He struggles, he can barely read. I'm looking, cheating at me and said, wait a second, tell me what's going on. Turns out, I said, you can't see.
Wow.
You're right. I said, you need
see what? Only words or anything?
He can't see words. He can't define the words. He's very, very smart. But he couldn't get from reading words. He couldn't translate. It just didn't work in his brain. I said, your problem is you need Erlen. And he had Erlen. It's a type thing using color films and filters. Certain colors you can see, certain tones you can't see. Anyway, he got these special lenses for his glasses and overlays from his reading. He says, you should know. I tell my reading, I thank you, bless you every time I see you, because no one ever told me that I couldn't see.
Wow, that is wild.
And so now he's like loves reading. He couldn't read before.
Wow.
He couldn't see because he needed to have the light filtered. It didn't work. Whether it's fluorescent lights or whatever the story was, the lights, it didn't work. He needed Erlen technique to see.
Wow.
So there's many reasons kids are not functioning well. And drugs is sometimes the answer. It does help.
Right.
But it's
temporary probably.
Well, done properly. Now, people take the medication for ADHD for a long time. They end up having a lot of other problems later on in life. Serious mental problems. And so Alzheimer's is a risk factor, or Alzheimer's. Really? But what happens with the medications, if you need a very low dose, the first dose you take, kid goes, wow, then you have the right medication. If you got to keep bumping the dose up higher and higher and higher, you're on the wrong track.
Ah, I see. Because it's a chemical release. If it works, it'll work. Right.
If you got to put a high dose, make a change, you're trying to overpower a system, not trying to help the system.
Right.
And so you can help. Medications can be a tremendous help for kids.
Right.
I'm learning one medication, but used properly.
Right. And looking at the whole picture, which is the food and the sleep and the body.
Right.
Wonderful. Binyamin, thank you.
My pleasure.
I really, really appreciate it. Your website is specific website that you're talking about is beaterrificdad.com.
Right.
I'm going to put it in the description. And I appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom.
It was a pleasure.
Your story. some of it. It's really, really wonderful.